Hi, I'm John F. Allen.
And I'm R.J. Sullivan.
And we're the Two Towers.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Two Towers Talk Show. And today's show is going to be our review of Captain America Civil War. I'm John F. Allen, Tower 1.
I'm R.J. Sullivan, Tower 2.
Both RJ and I have seen the film, and we both really liked it. I personally am going to, right now, recommend that you see the film. Don't judge this based off of having seen Batman vs. Superman, please.
No, that would be bad.
It's its own thing. Trust me.
Oh yeah, you definitely want to see it. If you have any love for the superhero genre and you have any appreciation for how Marvel is the direction that they're taking their movie universe, this is a must-see. Absolutely.
We'll start off basically talking about what we liked about the film and, overall and then throughout the film. So again, this is going to be a spoiler review. We're going to be talking openly about it. So if you have not seen the movie, go out and see it now.
And then come back. Yeah.
Then come back. Yeah.
That's good call. All
yeah.
right, let's get to it then.
All right. So, just as an overall statement from me, I think the movie was definitely gets an A grade, even an A plus, even for me. It is one of the Marvel franchises that Captain America that has gotten better with each successive film, which is rare. Usually it's like the first film's the best and then they kind of wane down after that. This one keeps ramping up with each film, and that's rare. And I think that that's a testimony to Marvel and Disney working together, finding the right people to write the stories and the right directors to give the stories the feel that make them successful.
I'm going to mostly agree with what you said. I don't think I've had enough time to process it to go so far as to say I think it's better than Winter Soldier. There was a lot of moving parts in this movie. It was a little more complicated. It tended to kind of splinter off a lot more, and I'm not sure quite how I feel about that. However, I will say I enjoyed it a lot more than Avengers: Age of Ultron, which is really what this directly follows. So.
Right.
Winter Soldier was a really tight movie. This was also a really tight movie. I'm not willing at this point to say as definitively as you did that Civil War was better. I will say we are really like this with Age of Ultron upon reflection and some repeat viewings. It didn't quite deliver as well as those two films did. Winter Soldier and Civil War, obviously with the tie-in of Bucky, are directly connected, and a lot of the plot points in one pick up in the other.
Right.
Wow, I'm not quite willing to say which one is better, but it's the difference between 98 and 99%, however that would end up working. So yeah, but they were both very, very solid and meant to go together, and I thought it worked a little more smoothly than some of the branching off that Age of Ultron did. Not quite as successfully, I feel.
Well, I mean, and I totally get that. I think that it should be said that that's this movie being better than Winter Soldier for me is very close. It's not like it's leaps and bounds for me. I think that what won me over with the Civil War over Winter Soldier is that it took the plot thread and it expanded upon it. Plus, it put in to context the emotional relationship between Cap and Tony, as well as between Cap and Bucky, and it actually made the stakes even higher, and it also took into account all the things, all the fallout from Age of Ultron. So I think that those things, plus the introduction of Black Panther and Spider-Man, won me over, and it's just by this much, but it is to me, in my personal opinion, just edges out the Winter Soldier just a little bit because of those factors. It is not, like it was just amazingly more successful or better. It's close.
Yeah,
it's close.
I'm a big Spider-Man fan. I'm going to just jump right to that, and I'll contrast that with Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're a big fan of the Black Panther.
Yes.
I knew little about the Black Panther. I knew a ton of things about Spider-Man. I felt that they presented Spider-Man very well. I thought it was a little odd to the way they injected Tony Stark into part of his origin story and his setup. It made sense because every movie seems to have to address the idea of how does he get such a professional looking costume, however they end up doing that. In the Tobey Maguire films, it was actually, I think in the novels they say that the wrestlers helped him make it or something, from his wrestling tie-in. Now that I'm talking, I don't think they actually talked about that in the Amazing Spider-Man book. Movie so much,
he pretty much
but
just did
that was the least of its problems. But I like the way they addressed that here, and the way they basically, you had this kid who was playing a superhero, and then Tony Stark comes along and says, "Let me basically help set your brand up so that you can do these things a whole lot better." That was an interesting take on it. It certainly is not canon to the Spider-Man stories at all, but I was okay with it. I know that Marvel just got the rights back to have control of the character, and I also understand you got to get Spider-Man back into play as quick as possible. So they did that. The new kid, Tom Holland, right?
Yes, Tom Holland.
I really like his Peter Parker. Peter Parker's always been a bit dorky for me, and I think he really pulled that off. This was not the opportunity to hear him do the smart aleck comments during the fights. I kind of like the fact that he was kind of a fanboy while he was fighting them and making comments about their powers. They weren't really trying to defeat in the airport scene, which I'm sure we'll talk about quite a bit. They really weren't trying to humiliate their opponent, so it was kind of an interesting fight where they were kind of like he was kind of admiring who he was fighting while he was fighting them.
Right.
And if he can take that tone that he gave off while he was doing that and tweak it to where he's insulting the villains, like if he's fighting the Vulture, he's fighting Kraven, and it seems like the way he delivered those lines is going to work really, really well going forward. I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out, because they haven't found someone who can do both. Tobey Maguire was a fantastic Peter Parker. Because of the way it was scripted, he made a really good Spider-Man, but he didn't pull off the smarty pants type thing that Spider-Man was known for.
Right. I think Andrew Garfield was a little bit better at that.
Was flip-flop.
Right,
yes.
But his Peter Parker was like this morose type of emo kid, and that's
kind of too cool.
Yeah, he was not nearly, you look at this kid and you're like, okay, well, why don't you have a girlfriend? You know why? I mean, you look at Tobey Maguire, was like, man, you lucked out with this chick. I mean, but and you're right, it kind of flipped. I think this kid, Tom Holland, has those qualities, and he did say that he studied both actors' portrayals and came away with what was good, but he made it his own. And I think this kid actually has, for the half hour he's in the movie, we haven't seen a full movie yet, so we can't really give a full assessment. But for the half hour he's in this film, he pulled off Peter Parker and Spider-Man admirably, and I think that he's going to be a terrific Spider-Man. In a lot of ways, in my opinion, he's a little bit better than either of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, but for him to carry the whole movie, that remains to be seen. I don't have any doubts that he can do it, but...
I'm excited to see. I love the fact that they've titled the next one Homecoming. I just think that is so appropriate. Good job, Marvel. I see what you did there. Okay, so I'm really anxious to see the next one. Now, my quibble with Spider-Man Aunt May was certainly a different approach, and it's gonna take some getting used to for me with Marissa Tomei
Yes.
cast in the part as a much younger and not entirely unattractive Aunt May, and Tony Stark, who's kind of a dog anyway, kind of comments on that a couple times, and that's certainly not how we've seen Aunt May portrayed before, and certainly not talked about on screen before. So, having said that, I like the fact that they're planning for the long term. Obviously, both these actors are going to get older. They're planning at least, I'm guessing, 3 at the minimum, probably 4 or 5 movies with these actors. So they want to cast young and let them grow into the part. So I can appreciate that, and I'm sure it'll be fine.
And I think that when they cast Tom Holland, they wanted a younger Spider-Man because they wanted him to grow into the part. I mean,
absolutely.
Tobey Maguire did not really suspend disbelief for me as being a high school kid. I mean, he wasn't an old-looking actor. He did still look young, but I could kind of tell it's like, okay, this is a grown man.
Yes. No,
I mean,
no doubt.
now Tom Holland is 19. He's still a teenager, but I mean, here's the thing though. He is in a position age-wise where he can grow into this character more organically, and they can deal with Spider-Man as his origins depicted with the Steve Ditko Stan Lee run in the very beginning, where he was a high school student, and then we finally progressed to college. And this can be done over the course of 3 films. And I think that this is going to be the most organic and the better way to handle the character than they have in the past with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield.
Well, let's hope so. Now I'm gonna change over to the Black Panther. I've heard you talk about a great deal, and I know how excited you were about it.
Yes.
I knew very little about the Black Panther except what you've told me on occasion. So I came into it cold, which was, I actually enjoy those type of situations. Like when I saw the Hellboy movie, I took everything at face value because I had no history with it. The Black Panther came off looking extremely well to me. My only question, which I'm going to direct at you, that surprised me was how much this seemed to be an origin tale, in the sense that, okay, Black Panther has a movie coming out 2018, 17?
18.
In 2018. This almost seemed like the story I thought they were going to tell. Like, oh, we have launched him in this movie, so where do we go with the Black Panther film? And I'd love to get your feedback on that.
Well, I think with Marvel's trend of not doing origin stories in their films, this kind of fits in. It kind of gives you the origin of how he comes to be publicly recognized as Black Panther, but it does not go into in-depth analysis, or does not show you any in-depth coverage of Wakanda. And I think that that's where the Black Panther movie is going to take place. Again, there's spoilers here. So he goes back to Wakanda at the end of the film.
Yep.
And he is there with one side of the Avengers, who are on one side, Cap's team, basically. And so with that being said, I think that the Black Panther movie is going to kind of pick up from there, and it's going to be set largely in Wakanda, which is great because that's exactly where it needs to take place. In regards to the character of Black Panther, he came to America to learn more about the Avengers and to study them. He took an approach similar to Batman in that he studied all the Avengers. He knew all their weaknesses, he knew all their strengths, and he could basically take them down. All of them.
You're talking about in the comic books?
In the comic books, yes. He could take down all of them.
Was that because he was a villain originally?
No. It was because he was suspicious of the Avengers, because you have to take in consideration that Wakanda is a fictional country in Africa, and it was never colonialized. It was never conquered.
Gotcha.
That being said, they're going to play everything pretty close to the vest when it comes to foreigners. And that was addressed in this film when it talks about how when T'Chaka Black Panther's father is talking about how they need to open up and things of that nature. They've been closed off for so long. This is why. And one of the things with America and other countries is they wanted the vibranium. They wanted to control it, much like the diamond trade in Africa. They wanted to take over. They and Wakanda's technology was too advanced for them to do this, and it showed in the history of this. So that's why he was suspicious of the Avengers. He found that they were good people, but he had contingency plans in place. And in this movie, since we're speaking of the character Black Panther, they did an amazing job with the fight choreography. I think Chadwick Boseman did a exemplary job portraying the character. He was regal, he was strong, he was very intelligent. I mean, this guy's got an IQ like Tony Stark. That's the kind of thing that we're dealing with here.
He had an incredible presence immediately.
Right.
I have, and you know what? When all is said and done, jumping to the end, he was the only real grown-up in the room. He was the most mature. I mean, getting into some things that I'm still messing around with in my mind. It's called Captain America: Civil War. It's very splintered in the sense of Captain America's time on screen is really divided up between a lot of other people. Where I keep mulling it over in my head is who were the changing characters, who were the evolving characters, and who didn't evolve so much. Captain America started off very admirably. I'm going to defend my friend. That's where I stand on here. He didn't move. Now, is that character growth or not? I don't know. I know that he faced some incredible odds and he just stood his ground and he said, I'm not going to change my mind on this because it's right. Regardless of anything that was thrown in front of him, he made that stand. So in a way, that makes it his movie. Is that change? That's a discussion you and I can have. Tony Stark actually shifted and then shifted back a little bit. It was Tony Stark, of course, is a wild card because he's so emotionally unbalanced.
Right.
He came out on the side of the United Nations initially. He said we should sign this. I found the idea that the United Nations have any power kind of funny because we all know that it's a very political thing, and it's like we can sign the paper and still probably do mostly what we want. Sorry, that's just how I saw it. It was a little weird for me. I'm like, just sign the paper, whatever. But he decided that there needed to be some checks and balances. I thought the argument was very logical. For me, I could see how I really liked Tony Stark's argument of let's sign this, let's turn him in, get him the help he needs in an asylum, and then we can try and deprogram him. That made sense to me. I kind of wanted to reach in and shake Captain America and be like, that's a good deal, take that deal, you know. But I also kind of saw why they didn't. The airport fight was just so spot on. It's worth the price of admission. Right there, that 20-25 minutes was just incredible. I love that Black Widow, right? Scarlett Johansson.
Yes.
I loved that they gave her so much to do, and I loved her character arc in that. I'll say that as a non-spoiler, but what they did with her I thought was really amazing. Tony Stark shifts and changes his mind, and then due to an emotional side punch, shifts back a little bit. And he fell somewhere in between, like, yes, I normally feel this way, but this guy's got to die. So it was like he was the one that went through the most change in where he was coming from. Part of me wishes he'd approached that a little more logically when he saw the video. Big spoiler.
Right.
You know, when he found out that Bucky, while he was brainwashed, was responsible for his parents' death, it's like you knew he was brainwashed. You knew he had no actual control.
Right.
That shouldn't have changed that, but I kind of get it. I wish he had not. I wish that hadn't changed things as much as it had. I got to give a lot of credit to the Zemo character, the way they portrayed him, because I'm gonna talk about Batman v Superman here, okay? what I loved about that was everything went back to Zemo, even though he had very little screen time, and you really didn't find out much about his motivation till the end. He controlled everybody from the beginning. It was all his
Very
plot.
calculating, very manipulative.
Extremely calculating, clever, evil genius. All the evil genius type stuff that you wanted to see Lex Luthor do in Batman v Superman, and all we got from him was a bunch of talking and the most idiotic plan ever. Here, we heard almost nothing from him the whole movie, but it all tied back to him at the end, and you realize he was the evil genius mastermind behind everything. I was like, yes, that's how you want to see that kind of mastermind portrayed. He's the guy behind pulling the strings, behind the scenes the whole time. I know that he was very different from the comic book version, but I like that aspect of him quite a bit. So I'm going to let you talk now. I feel like I've been talking quite a while. Sorry.
Well, that's okay. There's a lot to talk about. I want to go back to what you were saying as far as Captain America and why Steve Rogers didn't initially sign the... I'm Team Cap. All the way, even after the movie. I felt for Tony, but I'm still Team Cap. I walked out of the theater after seeing the movie twice, still Team Cap. I wouldn't have signed it either. Specifically because you had Thunderbolt Ross presenting it. After what he did to Bruce Banner, after all the things that went on with that whole incident, and I'm sure Steve is aware of this because it was part of why the Avengers were founded in the first place, and it was footage that all of them had seen, including Tony.
Was this back in Incredible Hulk?
Yes, in the Incredible Hulk film. There's no way I would have trusted him, but I wouldn't have trusted the government after seeing S.H.I.E.L.D. turn out to be Hydra and nearly dominating the world. I understand why he was not jumping the gun to sign it, and then even at a point in the movie when he was about to sign it, they changed his mind, and the reason why it was like martial law because they wanted to appease the government. They wanted the government to feel like that they were safe or whatnot. If Scarlet Witch really wanted to leave the compound, as we see,
she could have.
she could have.
Yeah, she did.
So let's not even kid ourselves. This was something that left a bad taste in Steve's mouth. It left a bad taste in my mouth. And any of you guys who have actually read the Civil War comic in which this movie is based off of, you'll realize that Tony Stark in this movie is almost a saint compared to how he acted in the comic. He was a total asshole in the comic. I mean, there's just no way to say it. He was a son of a bitch. I don't usually cuss on these shows, but those are words that if you read the Civil War comic book, you'd be saying the same thing, even if you were someone who was prone not to use foul language. That's the kind of guy that they portrayed him as being. This movie version is a much more relatable, and I think that was by design, a version of that. And so that, with that being said, I understand why Steve didn't want to sign it. Now back to Tony and his reaction after seeing the video and whatnot. A lot of people were tripped up on the fact that Captain America knew that his parents had been killed. But if you rewatch The Winter Soldier, you'll know that when they were in the bunker and Arnim Zola, whose brain patterns had been put into this computer, he showed them the clip, the newspaper clipping that said that talked about Howard Stark and his wife Maria being killed in a car crash, and he specifically said that Hydra manipulated that. Now, Steve didn't know until that point that it was Bucky that did it.
Right.
But he knew that something involving the Winter Soldier program was involved, and I'm sure Steve probably surmised that his friend may have been responsible, but he didn't have any clear knowledge of that, which was why when Tony asked him, did you know? And he said, well, I didn't know Bucky did this until just now. And he's like, did you know? And he's like, yeah, I was trying to spare you or whatnot. I get what you're saying, he had just called Bucky the Manchurian Candidate So he
No,
knew
I
that
gotta
he,
show my kids that movie. Go ahead.
he knew he knew that he was influenced by Hydra, and he wasn't doing this of his own volition. But I bought into it just enough to let it pass because of who Tony is. If you've been watching these movies from Iron Man 1, you realize, and in the beginning, you'll realize that Tony is a narcissist. Tony is an egomaniac. Tony is someone who has no grasp of their emotion. Now, they think they do, but they don't. And he deals with a lot of guilt. He's been dealing with guilt from the very beginning. First time you see him on screen in Iron Man 1, he's dealing with the guilt from the fallout of his weapons being put in the wrong hands and killing people. He's dealing with the guilt that involved what his father did or didn't do that caused turmoil with another character, and the weapons again. And then he's dealing with guilt about how he's treated Pepper Potts and how he's treated other people that have set these things in motion, and then him tinkering around with alien technology and creating Ultron in Age of Ultron and the fallout of Sokovia and all that. And then, of course, you have the character Miriam, played by Alfred Woodard, who confronts him after a speech at MIT to tell him that, basically her son went over there to do good work, and while they were fighting, they dropped the city on him and killed him. Mm-hmm. So, he's dealing with a lot of guilt. That is a psychosis that would explain kind of why somebody would react the way he did when he saw his parents be killed by Bucky. Now, would he have gone quite to that extreme? Probably not, unless he had been drinking, which is another thing that certainly does. But I think that when you put it into those kind of contexts or whatnot, I think that's the reasoning. That's why I kind of bought it. But I think that Cap, in fighting with Tony in that instance, was not only trying to keep him from killing Bucky because he didn't want his friend to die, but he was also wanting to not have that be another stain on Tony's conscience.
Sure.
Because after the dust settled, he would have carried that guilt around. He'd probably been in the bottom of a bottle.
Yeah, well, I think when I say I was disappointed that Tony Stark made that decision, what I'm saying is I wish he had done the more mature thing.
Right.
It doesn't mean I don't get why he didn't, and I also get, and let's just be honest, this is a superhero film, and they know that you're there for the superhero action.
That's right.
This is, and I had a conversation with someone I admire a great deal, and I respect her opinion on this, but they're there for the punching, they're there for the superhero action. If you get some meat and potatoes in the movie that you can take to a higher philosophical layer, that's great, and I think that this is a perfect example of what that is. What I really love about having structures like Facebook nowadays is that you can have these conversations and you can dig in a little deeper and you can disagree with what other people are saying and have fun conversation about a superhero movie that actually has more to it than that. But at the end of the day, it's a superhero movie, and people are there for the punching and the action, and they needed to end with the punching and the action. And I'm like, did we really want to see another 15 minutes of them sitting down at a table and talking, or do we want to finally get to it? And I think Marvel walked the line. Some people could say that maybe it needed to be tweaked this way. Some people could say it needed to be tweaked that way. I'm still kind of processing it all, but I do think there was a lot in here to digest. There's lots of deeper meaning, but because it's also a superhero movie, you had to deliver on both counts, and they certainly did. I think it's what it needed to be.
I had a conversation with, I think, the very same person that you're speaking with recently, and we had a good conversation about it as well. No one's minds were changed, but we were able to understand each other's viewpoints or whatnot and actually kind of accept some things. And I gave them some facts that they had to think, oh, okay, yeah, I forgot from the other movie, that makes sense now. because I'm a historian not only of the comics but also of these films. I've seen them multiple times, so some of them I can even quote you the lines to. That's how engrossed and ingrained they are
I know,
with me.
It's definitely the age of John Allen for sure.
But moving on to talk just briefly. I didn't get a chance to really say too much more about Black Panther. I wanted to add these things.
Sure.
The character, you were right. He was the most mature out of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then he was also the one whose emotional, I guess, ties to this were most focused.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that his growth in the film was astounding, considering the fact that he wasn't the main focus of the film towards the end. So I think that the character was very well written. It gave props to the character of Black Panther and T'Challa, who's the alter ego of Black Panther, and it really set up the Black Panther movie, the forthcoming Black Panther movie, really well. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then on to Spider-Man. RJ's a bigger Spider-Man fan than me, but I do love Spidey. Okay, and that being said, I think that it was a little weird with Marissa Tomei playing Aunt May, but it was also a little weird for Sally Field to be playing Aunt May. But they gave us a little progression. We went from the First Lady in the Tobey Maguire movies to Sally Field to Marissa Tomei, and it was like they were decades apart. We had some lady in her 70s, some lady in her 60s, and now Marissa Tomei, who was in her 50s. And I wanted to also point out something else. Marissa Tomei and Robert Downey Jr. have a history together. Not only have they been in a few movies together, but they were romantically involved at one time. So this was something that was played out very well with them sitting on a couch when Peter comes home, and their interactions, were really organic because of who they are and what they meant to each other at one time. So that was something that's an interesting little Easter egg there for you. So
Okay,
yeah,
no, I didn't know that. Still, doesn't make it much less creepy for me. But, that's all right. So what else you got there with Easter eggs?
When we find out the key words for the programming of the Winter Soldier, basically we have flashbacks where we show a character named Colonel Vasily Karpov, who was the Russian Hydra agent who was programming the Winter Soldier. He was using keywords, and one of the keywords he used was freight car, and freight car was what Bucky fell out of in Captain America: The First Avenger when everyone thought he died.
Okay.
Homecoming, which is the subtitle for the new Spider-Man film, was also one of those words. And we have a date, which was like January, was like 1/17 something or other, and that was actually the birth date listed in the museum for James Buchanan Barnes. So this was a little nod towards that. And as far as another Easter egg is concerned, when Bucky is in the immobilization chamber that they have him in after they've captured him, it's Deck D, and then it's number 23. D23 is the name of the convention for Disney.
Oh.
That was not an accident. That was put there on purpose. Mm-hmm. And so that was something that was interesting. And then when you see another, going back to Black Panther, when he's coming out of the building and he has the tall woman who's walking in front of him, who's like his bodyguard or whatnot. The Dora Milaje are his personal guards in the comics, and they are all female, and they are badass. And when she told Black Widow, "Move or you will be moved," I was like, yeah, that's a fight that would go on for a long time, because Widow's not taking this lady out quick at all. If she's able to take her out, because it may just end up that they knock each other out, because she's bad. Okay.
Okay.
And then when Panther said, "As entertaining as this would be to watch," because he knew, you know, I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
You had a lot of things from the comics, like when at the airport scene you had Hawkeye shooting an arrow that had Ant-Man on it. That was straight off of the comic cover for Avengers 223. You also had Spider-Man webbing the shield and taking it from Cap. That's happened before in the comics. You had the iconic scene at the Hydra base where Tony's shooting the repulsors against Cap's shield, and they're standing, and you get the side view of that. That was straight off a cover of one of the issues of Civil War. So that was something. And one of the things that we haven't talked about yet that was an interesting thing in the film was Giant Man. That was awesome. When Ant-Man grew and turned into Giant Man, I knew that this was going to happen because my son is a Legos fanatic, and the Legos had Giant Man as one of the characters. And so I was like, oh, they're going to show Giant Man in the Civil War movie. I know they wouldn't have had this character if it wasn't going to happen. And it did. And it was awesome. And I liked the airport scene. That was one of the best filmed superhero group fight scenes. It was much better than Age of Ultron. Now, don't get me wrong. As dizzying as Age of Ultron was, I still loved it because it was a bunch of superheroes.
Sure.
But the choreography for this was better paced, better filmed, and it was less jumbled, less.
What I'm going to say, there are certain scenes that become iconic. Fellowship of the Ring, you have the running around in the caverns, and then the appearance of the giant demon that
Sauron.
the thing with the whip that Gandalf has to fight off.
Yes.
I mean, that's such an
yes.
iconic moment in that movie.
Right.
You have Empire Strikes Back, Luke, I'm Your Father. You have
Right.
What I would equate this to is The Princess Bride, which. Little tidbit about me. I went and saw The Princess Bride in the theater because of the sword fight on the cliff, and only because of the sword fight on the cliff. I went back the very next day and paid full price again just so I could rewatch that. The airport scene was like that for me. It's like if this movie was total garbage, which it's not, but if you just had that one part in the airport and nothing else, it's worth seeing just for those 15 or 20 minutes, which I think are going to go down those moments are going to go down as some of the best work that the Marvel Universe has done overall. And that's going to get paired up with some of those great moments in other movies where this is where everything fell in line just perfect. And it was that magic formula that everyone's striving for and never can quite get, and they got it here. Yes, I like Giant Man. I didn't know that was actually what they call him there. You know, what struck me more as far as Ant-Man's appearance that I keep thinking back on was how he messed Tony up so bad.
Oh God,
I thought that was amazing.
That was, and it was also funny because basically when Hawkeye shoots the arrow that Iron Man's on, it goes up in the air, and then he comes off the arrowhead and he goes inside Tony's armor.
Yes.
And he's in there just pulling stuff apart or whatnot, and systems are going down on Tony's armor, and he's like, what's going on?
The one thing Tony did not account for when he put his armor together. We've seen him do all kinds of things and safe-proof so much, but he didn't think about a little tiny insect. If it knew what it was doing, how much havoc it could cause. And I was like, dude,
and then
he found your Achilles heel and he is tearing you up now.
And then Ant-Man, and then as this was going on, Ant-Man was like, Tony was asking his AI Friday what was going on, and then he could hear Ant-Man say, "This is your conscience speaking to you. you know we don't talk very often, and it was just classic. It was just it. The movie infused humor where it needed to be, and in the right amounts and in the right places. And that's something, again, I'm sorry that Batman versus Superman did not do. I know that, Zack Snyder wanted to do a different thing, but had he had some of these moments, it might have been a better film.
We could do a whole other show on the comparisons of the two.
Yes.
Why waste our time? I think most people are in agreement. Yeah. One got it very right, and the other one got it very wrong.
Right.
It's about all that need to be said.
Right.
This is the year where my two favorite heroes had brief guest starring roles. So, still love Wonder Woman's role, and I love Spider-Man's role. So it's setting me up for a good year next year.
Yeah. So it's definitely a movie that I highly recommend. If you have not seen Captain America: Civil War, that you should go see it. I was pleased with it all the way around. I think it was well directed, it was well written, and it was well acted. And, people can say what they want to or whatnot. Everybody has their own opinion about it, and that's fine. But I do personally think that this movie was very emotional. The acting, was on point, and it drew you in. It wasn't just something that was just bit, bam, wham, plenty of action. Although there was plenty of action, there was plenty of heart as far as I was concerned. You actually kind of felt a certain way, and these actors gave performances that lended themselves to that, and that is something to be said about a genre film of any type, whether it be superheroes, science fiction, a mystery, whatever. If it's not, some type of, love-struck, cinematic experience or whatnot for a movie like this to get those things to resonate with people amidst all the action and everything is something to be said.
Well, there's a couple points following up what you said, and then we probably need to wrap up. But this validates what Marvel's been trying to do, because you can't take this movie in a vacuum by itself and have gotten the emotional response that most audiences are going to have, because we've seen Iron Man for some time, we've seen Captain America for some time, we've seen these characters over multiple movies, and it validates that you can have the investment as a viewer because they did it right and built it up over a period of time. There's people who come on different sides of the issue, and I think that this really shows they have a big game plan and it's paying off in spades. And absolutely, the performances are a big part of that, because we've seen the same actors over a period of time taking on the roles, and we've seen the consistency, and it speaks to the vision of what Marvel's trying to do, and we saw it pay off.
No pun intended about that.
The pun was not intended, but you take the pun if you need to take it.
One other thing, briefly, and then we'll get into our scores or ratings of the film before we close. I don't know if you noticed, but at the beginning, when Tony was talking to the students at MIT, he was showing that virtual reality scene with him and his parents the last time he saw them, and he talked about something that basically worked with the hippocampus in your brain to alter your memories and such. Something he said the acronym was BARF, and he had to work on that. At the very end of the movie, in the middle scene credit where they're in Wakanda and Bucky is going back into the cryogenic freeze, he's telling Cap that maybe this is the best thing until he figures out a way to get those memories dealt with.
Right.
Well, this was the setup. A lot of people probably missed it, but I'm here to tell you, with me, when I watch a film like this, I'm all over that. Right. So I caught it the first time that I saw the film. It was like, wow, okay, so that makes sense. It connected. Just wanted to put that out there for you guys. You can do your own research or watch the movie and see it again. Right. But yes, that was there. So the answer to Bucky's problem lies with Tony.
Right.
All right, so we're going to give our ratings. And this is where we rate the film with our rating scale. And I personally give this 5 out of 5 towers. You'll see my rating scale up there. 5 out of 5 towers for this movie. It deserves every tower and more. And then we're going to get over to RJ's assessment.
Yeah, definitely 5 out of 5. This is where I feel you can get into. Let's take Age of Ultron, Winter Soldier, and Civil War. Is one 4.7 versus 4.8 versus 4.9? You can shift those around and mix that up a little bit, but the point is, it is definitely a 5 out of 5. All 3 of those movies I would give a 5 out of 5 with what they intended and where they landed. I think it's very, very close, and then you get into really fine processing after that. Right. I think that if you are looking for the type of movie that it intends to be, you're going to absolutely get what you're looking for, and it's not to be missed.
Yeah, definitely. I would put this movie in my top 5 Marvel Cinematic releases. Avengers will always be number 1 because it's the first time we see the characters together. Number 2 is going to be Civil War, and number 3 is going to be Winter Soldier for me. And that's a very, very thin line between 2 and 3. So just so you know there.
Not ready to rank them yet. We need to process this one. There's a lot to process. That's what's that's what's so awesome about it. There's so much to process and a lot to think about.
Well, I think after this year, or at least by the time that Doctor Strange comes out, maybe we ought to do a video about our rankings of the film.
Sure.
Time. And then we can do another one in 2020 when.
I mean, you have to allow though that I'm going to be throwing in Spider-Man 2 into my rankings because that's still one of my all-time favorites. Maybe Homecoming that'll shift, but right now, I'm a little old school when it comes to some of this. But yeah, maybe we could do that.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of the Two Towers Talk Show, our spoiler review of Captain America Civil War. If you like what you see and you want to get more, then make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And then you'll be getting all the updates and all the new shows. We'll be doing reviews of the major tentpole superhero and kind of like maybe some of the action and sci-fi movies that come out throughout the year. So look for those videos. I think the next one we'll be doing will probably be the X-Men Age of Apocalypse, and checking that out and giving our thoughts on that. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. And we both are authors of speculative fiction. So if you want to check us out and learn more about us, you can visit me at my website, which is johnfallenwriter.com. And RJ, where can they find you?
rjsullivanfiction.com. And I will add, I know that we have some fun author interviews kind of in the can right now that we're going to be getting out there shortly. And fingers crossed, a very exciting interview, not all that terribly different in my opinion from the Brandon Eastman interview we had earlier. We have someone who's very excited to be on the show, I hope later this summer, so I hope that works out. I'm going to sit on it for now until we make sure, but I think we got some fun surprises ahead.
Yes, we'll be excited to talk with this person, and I definitely have some questions for them. So, and if you want to follow our companion website or whatnot, you can visit us at twotowers.talkshow.wordpress.com and check us out there. Again, I thank you for viewing, and until next time, hey-oh! The Two Towers Talk Show is sponsored in part by Showtime Cinema in Mooresville, Indiana. Their friendly staff is always willing to go the extra mile to make your movie-going experience an enjoyable and memorable one. Enjoy the comfort of their new cushioned seating in their spacious auditoriums, and while you're there, be sure to stop by the concession stand and purchase some popcorn where real butter topping is an option. They're located at 300 South Bridge Street in Mooresville, Indiana. We hope to see you at the movies. Be sure to check out our advertising partner, DC and Marvel, a universal alliance. They are a friendly Facebook community who offer digital comic book giveaways, games, tournaments, and viewing parties. Follow the link below and give them a look. You'll be glad you did.